Hello everybody, welcome. I'm Zodiac, welcome. So in this wonderful reading that I'm going to provide you would be for April 20th to April 27th of 2025. So this is going to be a very wonderful reading that I'm going to be doing, and I think that it'll be very awesome to understand of how this is going to be interesting of how it is. So I think to my own way of how this is going to be, this is the way it seems to be in the way of how it goes, and it's the wonderful feeling about the way it seems to be in that way. So it's like this is the way how it is in that way, where you only have your own interaction, your own feelings, your own wants, your own needs. But the way of how this is going to be very interesting of how it is in one way or another, right? So this is going to be a very interesting way of knowing what to do, but then it's very interesting of how it's going to be in that way, right? So this is the way it seems to be in that way. So this is the way it kind of goes, and this is how it kind of represents of how it seems to be in that way. So the oracle card I'm going to read you is surrender. I can release my need to control. That's the way it goes. So when you have your own experiences about your surrendering, or you are thinking that everything has to be all great or neat or tidy, or you're surrendering that there are so many things are on your mind and you don't know what to do, you're basically saying that, oh well, I know what to do, but it's like, understand about how it is, right? So when you have your own surrendering about you're waving that white flag or whatever it is, it's like you're doing your surrendering, right? When you surrender, you are basically surrendering, saying, okay, I can't do this anymore, I quit. But the thing is that when you have your own surrendering, you have to surrender whether you're gonna basically, like, you're going to do it or you don't want to do it, but when you are surrender, the way of how this is, it's the way of how it's going to be in that way. And you think that, okay, well, everything's going to be fine, but then it's like, well, okay, this is the way it seems to be, this is the way I need to do it, that's the way it goes, right? That's why it seems to be in that way, but then that's the way it kind of goes in that situations of how it's going to be, right? That's the way it kind of concludes. So that's what it kind of represents that. So in the tarot situation, gonna figure out what's going on in the situation, and this is the way it kind of goes from there. And then I'll do the oracle cards. One of them's to. That's the way it goes. I might read you the Enchanted Mapp. Maybe I'll get around to that. But the way of how this is, it's the way of how it's gonna be in that way. And this is the way it kind of concludes of how it's kind of based on that situation. That's the way it kind of goes in that way. So that's how it kind of is at the moment, right? Because that's the way it seems to be, right? So we have to understand the way of how this is, the way how it kind of goes from that situation. We have to understand of how this is going to be in that way. So I'm going to look at the past, the present, and the future situation, because that's the way it kind of concludes, and that's the way it kind of ends up being. But that's the way it kind of is at the moment. So this is how it is. Alright, so the King of Cups reversed. You have no support. I don't know why for that. That's in the past. The present situation, Knight of Swords, it represents, okay, reverse means if it's upright, it's like you have drama in that situation. But when it is the Knight of Swords reversed, there's no drama. There's nothing about that. And in the future, you have the Emperor that's reversed for, well, if it's upright, you have structure. But when it's reversed, you have no structure. So I'm going to try to figure out how this is. This is like a puzzle, but I'm going to try to figure out what this is in one way or another. So let's see what's going on in in the past situation. So you have the King of Cups, okay, reversed. The Magician is upright for a skill. The Six of Cups reversed, there's no past. Seven of Cups reversed, there's no illusion. But the Moon is upright, there's misrotations here. So when you have skill, when you have misrotations, that's the way it kind of goes in one or another. Because the way of how this is, it's the way of how where things are going to happen all at once, and you think, okay, well, I know what to do, but then it's like how I can understand about this whole entire situation. This is the way it kind of concludes in that way. So you have to understand that the way of how this is, the way of how things are in that way, you have your own experiences about from how you can understand the way of how this is in one way or another. That's the way it seems to be, and that's the way it kind of goes, right? So, that's the way it is in one way or another. So let me see what the universe is saying here for this Moon and Magician here from the past situation. The Knight of Cups, it does represent a romance. So you could be dealing with another Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio as water signs, as zodiac signs. So you pay attention about how that's going to be in that way. So when you have romance, you pay attention, right? That's the way it kind of goes. You don't want to surrender and say, I'm not going to love you. I'm not trying to be funny here, but I am a little bit. So that's the way it kind of goes, right? So that's how it is in your past situation. The present situation from now, you have the Knight of Swords reversed. So let me try to figure this out. The High Priestess upright, you're going to use your inner voice. The Ten of Cups upright, there's completion. The Eight of Pentacles reversed. There was more of your career, but then you're focusing about what was going on that way. Ace of Wands reversed. The Two of Wands reversed. The King of Swords reversed. But the Empress is upright. So you have nourishment. Because you have completion, you have things that you need to understand, be wise of how you can represent the way of how everything is going to be. And you think that, okay, well, everything is going to be all great, but then you have to think that, oh, well, this is a very interesting way of how I can understand this, right? This is the way it seems to be in one or another, right? So, when you have 10 cups upright, you have basic completion, you have the way of how everything's all completed, and it's like, alright, well, I know what to do, I got this, but that's how it is. You're using your inner voice, because that's the way it goes. That's the way it kind of, the way of how this is, right? Because you have to accept on how it is in one or another, and that's the way it kind of concludes in that way, right? That's the way it seems to be in that way. So this is like the present situation. Now in the future, as the Emperor reversed, there, like I said, it's like what I said. It means that you have structure, but then you have no structure, right? So let me try to clarify this. The Sun card is upright, so there's positivity. King of Wands reversed. The Knight of Swords is upright. So there is basically drama here in one way or another. The Sun card represents Leo as a fire sign, as a zodiac sign, but that's positivity, because if you're staying positive, that's the way it kind of goes in one way or another. The Knight of Swords is upright where you're having drama, because it's like there was something that was happening in one way or another, and it's like, well, this is not going to end well. It's not, because the way of how this is, it's like you're trying to have your own way of having your own experiences from the right wrong perspective. That's the way it kind of concludes. The King of Wands reverse, I'm going to clarify that. The Death card does represent Scorpio, but it does represent endings here. So when you have endings, it's like everything is going to be ending just like a story, right? Because it's like you're going from start, middle, and then there's the end, that's the way it kind of concludes. So it's like things will go as planned, things will go as how it's going to be in that way, because there is a way of how you can fight this feeling, or you're trying to figure out there was something happening in this wonderful kind of dynamic story. But the way of how this is, where if you are having your own romance, if you're having completion, if you're having nourishment, if you're trying to stay positive as much as you can, having endings, having drama, there's lots of things you're trying to reconsider the way of how you can understand of how you're expressed, of how you're feeling. So you could be dealing with inner Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. You can be dealing with inner Leo as a fire sign. You're dealing with inner Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer. Another Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio as well. So it's like you have water signs and air signs are going towards together. And you have one fire sign as in the Leo situation. That's the way it kind of goes. Like this is a beautiful, beautiful reading, but it's like a huge puzzle, right? So it's like, okay, this is the way it kind of concludes. Let's see. Let me try to use the Cat Tarot for a minute. Let me try to clarify this Knight of Cups here in the past. Magician's upright, so we're gonna have skill. The Hermit is upright, there's solitude. And the Moon is upright, there's misrotations here. Yeah, so that's how it goes. The Hermit does represent solitude, whether you're looking for a soulmate in that way. That's very interesting, and how it is one or another, that's the way it kind of concludes. Between the Empress and the Ten of Cups, I'm going to clarify that. The Empress is upright, yeah, so this is so funny, where I clarify the Empress, now there is an Empress here. But the way of how this is like there's two Empresses at the moment, like there are two feminines as the woman's situation. That's the way it kind of concludes, because you have nourishment, you have the way of how this is in one or another. That's the way it kind of is in one way of that situation. In the future, I'm going to clarify that. So the Strength can reverse, so there's no strength. The Hangman reverse, there's no restrictions. The Sun can reverse, there's negativity. Yeah, because you're between positive, negative at the same time. You're thinking, well, this is not going to end well for me. I can't do this anymore. I quit. Because you're trying to not use it as a surrender situation. But it's like, how would you understand this, right? This is, the way of how this is. This is like a puzzle situation. It is, right? And when there is a puzzle, as this whole tower situation, this is like a puzzle here, right? Because you're trying to fit all the pieces together, right? It's like you're trying to understand about the corner pieces, the middle piece, and everything else, right? You're trying to collide it together, right? That's how it seems to be. But between the positive and the negative situation, you're trying to think, well, this is not going to work out. That's the way it kind of concludes, because you're thinking, well, this is the way it kind of how it seems to be in that way. So let's see what the universe is saying here. So let's see. So I'm going to go from the left, so in the middle to the left, middle to the right. So let's see. Because the Ace of Cups is upright, followed by the 5 of Cups reversed, followed by the 10 of Swords reversed, followed by the 9 of Wands is upright. Yeah, so there's fear here. That's the way it kind of goes. The Ace of Cups represents there's like romance. There's lots of the way of how this is. So you could be representing. Well, it does represent Leo, Aries, Sagittarius as the 9 of Wands, but then the Ace of Cups shows up, and that represents Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio as another water sign. So there's lots of things that are going on in this situation. What's between the middle and the right side, please? The King of Pentacles is upright, followed by the 7 of Pentacles is upright, followed by the 9 of Pentacles is upright. Wow, now this is very interesting indeed. So it represents the King of Pentacles represents money, the way of how this is. The 7 of Pentacles does represent your career in the way of how it goes. And the 9 of Pentacles is upright where you're feeling comfortable. It does represent that. You could be dealing with another Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus as well. There's lots of signs, zodiac signs in here. There's 12 zodiac signs in this picture. It's like, wow, this is a beautiful reading. But the way of how this is, the way of how, the way of how this is going to be, this is the way it kind of turns out, right? That's how it kind of is at the moment, right? So the way how this is, the way how this is going to be, I'm going to try to figure out, I'll do one card for the past, one card for the middle, one card for the right, as in the present and the future. So, let's see. So, in the past, we have the Lovers is upright, so there's decisions here, right? What's in the present? Justice is upright, you're telling the truth. That's good. And what's on the right side for the future? Oh boy, the Three of Wands reversed. There's no communication. All right, so let me try to clarify the Lovers first in the past situation. So we have the Three of Pentacles here. There's no excitement. The Knight of Pentacles upright. There's trust. Okay, what's this Three of Pentacles about? Five of Wands reversed. There's no chaos. The Hierophant reversed. There's no guidance. Page of Pentacles reversed. There's no prospects. Ten of Pentacles reversed. There's no vision. Four of Wands reversed. There's no celebration. Queen of Swords reversed. There's no independence. And the Emperor is upright. There's structure. All right. So you know the way of how this is going to be. You have the trust. You have structure. That's the way it goes. I don't know why about the independence way, but alright. That's the way it kind of concludes from there. So it's like this is the way it kind of goes in that way, because this is the way it seems to be in that position of, we are here now or before it. That's the way it kind of is at the moment. So when you're trusting, you have trust in that way. You're having your own confidence of being confident of the way of how it goes. That's the way it kind of seems to be in that way. The way of how this is. Now, between the Truth card in the present situation, you're telling the truth. That's the main goal. But the way of how this is, I'm going to clarify this. The Ten of Cups reversed, there's no incompletion. The Three of Cups reversed, there's no celebration. The King of Pentacles reversed, there's no security. But the Seven of Swords is already you're feeling deceit. Oh yeah, that's very interesting. So in the way of how this is, you'll be dealing with another Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, as another air signs or zodiac signs in that matter. That's the way it kind of concludes in that way. And that's the way kind of reference of that situation, right? Because you're feeling deceit because there was something that was happening in that situations. But the way of how this is, you're trying to feel what everything is, because that's the way of how it kind of goes in that way. Because you're thinking, alright, well, this is the way it kind of concludes. This is the way of how this is, right? That's the way it seems to be in that way. So that's the present. And the future, as in the Three of Wands here, there's no communication. I don't know why, but let me clarify that, please. The Magician reversed, there's no skill. Five Pentacles upright, there's insecurity. Alright, what's opposite with this Magician here? Eight Pentacles upright, there's perfection. Alright, so you're going to have perfection. That's the main drag here in this situation. That's the way it kind of concludes. And the Five Pentacles is upright, that represents insecurity. Because maybe you just feeling shy, like you don't want to chit chat or something. I don't know if you're feeling where you want to communicate, or it's how to communicate, or maybe you're not being sociable. I don't know, but that's the way how it kind of concludes in one way or another. This is the way it seems to be in that way, where okay, everything seems to be fine, but then it's like, well, this is the way it kind of concludes. That's the way it seems to be, I guess, and that's how it seems to be. So let me try to figure out who's who in the present, in the past. So that's the past. That's just the present. This is the future. This is the way it goes. I was almost getting myself confused there. So what's in the past situation? The King of Birds is generous, professional, responsible, practical. A successful time, confidently accept opportunities you are offered. The mind is touched. Yeah, so you can be having the Midas touch, the way how it goes, because the way how this is like you have a way of knowing what to do, the way of how you're thinking in one way or another, because that's the way kind of interesting about how it is. So you could be dealing with either Virgo, Capricorn, or Taurus as zodiac signs, as earth signs. What's in the present situation? The Hermit. Archangel Raziel. Spend time in quiet meditation, spiritual teaching, self-discovery. Yeah, so you could be maybe looking for a soulmate in the way of how this is, because that's the way it kind of concludes, or the way of how this is. So you're thinking, okay, well, this is the way I need to understand of how I'm feeling, or the way of how I'm being wanted or needed, or that's the way it kind of goes. So it's like everything seems to be fine, but then it's like, okay, well, this is the way it seems to be. I don't want to feel any brittle or something like that. But the way of how this is the way of how you can understand about expand your horizons or your opportunities of having lots of options. That's the way it kind of goes in that way. That's the present, like as in now. And the future, let's see what this is. The Ace of Water is falling in love or the resurgence of a relationship, spiritual growth, and enhanced intuition, a new home. Yeah, so basically when you're using your own intuition or your own way, or you're having your own gut feelings, or the way of how it is, that's the way it seems to be in that way. It's like how this is going to be impossible, or how is it going to be. That's the way kind of interesting it, how it's going to be illustration, or the way how it goes, right? So that's the way it seems to be. So that's the way it kind of how these situations go, whether it's a good situation or bad situation, but the way of how this is, that's the way it kind of goes. So you could be dealing with either Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio as zodiac signs, as water signs. Okay, so that's the future. Now we're going to look at these oracle cards. So let's figure out who's in the past, who's in the present, who's in the future. My goodness, this is a long reading, but I'm gonna try to get there. In the past, the Shadow Queen, acquiring knowledge, insecurity, manipulation. Yeah, so you could be feeling like you're being manipulated, or you feeling like there was something happening, or it's like, why that this is not going to end well for me, or the way of how this is, right? So it's like maybe you're feeling insecurity, maybe you're feeling like you need to understand about how you're going to communicate better, or you're trying to not surrender, or whatever it is. But that's the way it seems to be in that way, right? That's the way it kind of goes in one way or another. So that's how it seems to be. But the Shadow Queen is feminine as the woman's situation. So you could be dealing with either Virgo, Capricorn, or Taurus as the zodiac signs, as the feminine situation, or the way of how this is in the past situation. What's in the present situation? The Camel Boy. Small steps, asking for help. Yeah, it's the way of how this is, right? You have to take, when you have small steps, it's like you're having baby steps. Like you have to take your, go slow, right? Slow and steady wins the race. That's the way it kind of goes, right? Everything is not going to happen all at once and say, all right, this is the way it goes. No. But the way of how this is, it's like the way how you can understand about, how you can do it in one or another. That's the way it kind of is. It's like everything is like all ship shape, but it's like, well, I need to understand where I'm going to be asking for help, or, that's the way it kind of is, right? So that's the way it seems to be in the present moment, right? So for this Hermit card that represents the Camel Boy, it does represent the masculine as the man situation. So it could be that. It could be generally requires as the masculine man, or it seems to be that, alright? That's the way it kind of is. And what's going on for the future? the Fire Prince, optimism and aggression. Yeah, so that's the way it kind of is, where maybe you're feeling optimistic, maybe you're feeling like you're going to have basically aggression or something, or you're trying to handle what you want, what you're going to get, but that's the way it kind of is. So it's like, this is the way how it's going to be like a push and pull situation, but the way of how this is, the way of how it's going to be very very authentic of how it's going to be, but this is the way it seems to be, right? This is the way of how it's going to be in one way or another, but that's how it kind of is in one way, or how it seems to be in that way. So it's like, okay, well, this is the way it goes, alright, so this is the way it seems to be, and that's the way it kind of is. So for the masculine situation, as in Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, as masculine man, it could be the Fire Prince, it could be that, or it could be a Leo as a fire sign, as a Zodiac sign. That's the way it kind of is in that way. Alright, and now we'll do one more, as in the Enchanted Mapp. It's a beautiful reading, by the way. Beautiful reading. Alright, so let me see. Alright, so this is how I'm going to read this. Number 3, Wizard of Awareness. Ooh, this is a good card. This is a really good card. Alright, number 3. Didn't I say that? Yes, I did. Well, this is a good reading. Okay, I hope I can read this. Hopefully. Alright, let me do this. Okay. It says, the Wizard of Awareness. Your soul knows best. Be still and observe. Alright, it says, the upright, it says, mindfulness is about being observant and remaining neutral about what goes on in the world around you. This applies to the environment within you, too. If you struggle inside yourself, stepping into an observer position gives you a new powerful perspective that neutralizes any discomfort or overexcitement. You have the capacity to see things clearly now, unencumbered by opinion or desire. Wearing the world as a loose garment requires you to adopt a sense that nothing that happens to you is personal. People come and go, experience evolve from one state to another in a continual shifting and change, no matter how much you want things to stay the same. The Wizard of Awareness asks you to give up your need to define or limit what you're experiencing now. It is all good. Let it be, and watch the miracle unfold without any direct influence from you. So that's how it seems to be, right? So the way how I see it in different perspective, that's the way it seems to be, and that's the way it kind of concludes, right? That's the way it is in one way or another, but that's the way it seems to be in one way or another, and this is the way it seems to be. So when you have a wonderful way, this is the way it kind of goes in one or another. So when everything happens for a reason, it's the way it goes, right? That's the way it seems to be. So I hope you all like this video. Please give it a like, please give it a comment and enjoy. And this is the way it seems to be, knowing that this is a wonderful feeling, but that's the way it kind of goes. And how you liking it, this is the way it is. So enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. And the way of how this is, the way of how everything is going to be, that's the way it is. And you have to understand that, okay, well, it's going to be fine. I'll let it go, or I'll do whatever I decide to do. That's the way it seems to be. And knowing about how everything is going to be in that way, everything is going to be all, there is going to be a conjunction, right? That's the way it kind of is. And when you do that, that's the way it seems to be, right? So the way of how this is, the way of how you're going to experience, the way of how this is, it's like that's the way it goes, right? So in this whole entire reading that I just told you about, it's like this is like a whole entire puzzle piece, right? So it starts from 3 cards and works your way up, right? That's the way it kind of is. But the way of how this is the way it needs to be, right? That's the way it needs to be. And knowing about how you're going to understand about all the facts and what's happening in the situations of how it's going to be, you have to understand, right? So that's the way it is, and that's the way it has to be, right? So you have to be who you are and be that everything will be fine, but that's the way it kind of concludes, right? That's the way it is. So like I say, I hope you all like this video. Please give a like, please give a comment if you want, but that's the way it seems to be. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day to all, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye for now, really.